It wasn't until we were in Las Vegas that we realized the depth of our mistake in agreeing to stay here for 2 whole days.
So often, on this road trip, we felt like the only people for miles. It's a good feeling, and Vegas is just the opposite.
Oh, you want to know about the surprise? Well...
Actually, your present's right there.
Happy birthday!
Evan and Spencer, my best friends since middle school, had plotted for him to come visit us for an early birthday surprise. He didn't really know anything about the trip, so we gushed, and he smilingly tolerated.
So yeah, probably not the best cliffhanger, but you work with what you got.
We were later joined by Eric, our gearhead friend from LA and host of RevMatch.tv, who accompanied us on part of the first road trip.
With Vegas in the rearview mirror, I got to see something equally terrifying, also in the rearview mirror. George's death wobble.
Hey, so we're heading at oh my god.
It's a terrifying, but not actually dangerous condition. The front wheels vibrate, sometimes violently, until you slow down or turn. I finally learned to manage it, but what a pain.
We were going to stop at Hoover Dam, so,
The less said about our visit to Hoover Dam, the better.
Yeah, long story short, one of us didn't clear the security checkpoint. Luckily, it is also the person who is editing the video, so we're glossing over that. Unfortunately we didn't have time to visit the Hoover Dam. Shame. Next time.
One of the prettier paved drives we made on the trip was Lakeshore and North Shore Road around Lake Mead. The water level had recovered somewhat from the recent drought, which made it a nicer view than we'd expected.
I was surprised at the lack of lake views on roads with names like this. We sometimes caught glimpses of Lake Mead, which, by the way, is gigantic. I would have thought it would have been hard to miss. But it was mostly rocky, winding roadway that slowly transitioned from the desert we'd seen before Vegas into these vibrantly colored red and white rock formations that were super tall and jagged. And, as is the theme for this trip, yet again, we'd never seen anything like it. So we pulled into Valley of Fire State Park and went pretty far into the park. One of the last trailheads and turnoffs is the White Domes Loop Trail. And the drive-in and the hike, totally stunning at every turn. Gee, I wish I'd written more about this hike. I have a million photos. It wasn't a very difficult hike, and there was some rock scramble and some wandering around in the sand. It was really, really pretty. We got back on the road and headed up towards the George's birthday hotel at Casablanca.
The plan was to get George smashed for his birthday, play some cheap blackjack, and then turn in so we can get an early start tomorrow for our trip into the Grand Canyon. We accomplished one of those things. Oh well.
So today we're going to head out to Barton Ranch on the north rim of the Grand Canyon. None of us have actually seen the canyon except by air, so I'm really excited about this. But I have to admit, this is probably going to be the biggest endurance test of the cars. This could get kind of legit.
Our journey from Mesquite to the Grand Canyon first took us down the Gold Butte Backcountry Byway.
Our first stop was the Cistern. I never really got around to figuring out what the history of it is, but I assume you're about to hear a cut over to George reading a Wikipedia page.
We stopped to hike around at Whitney Pocket, a fascinating set of rock formations that had been partially developed and then abandoned decades ago. The prominent man-made feature is the Cistern with a capital C, which was built in the 1930s by the Civilian Conservation Corps.
It was a cool, random Google Maps find, and I'm really glad we ended up doing it.
We moved on, heading east to Arizona. But just before we crossed the border, we encountered one of the most worrying contingencies that we had planned for.
I was leading in the Land Rover when things started to get weird.
The trail we were supposed to take into Parashant had new and vividly caution orange, no trespassing signs on either side all the way up and down the trail.
Ahead, I could see signs of some sort of an encampment. It doesn't look like much in the video, but in real life, it was clear that something wasn't right. Someone would rather we didn't go that way.
We'd planned for this contingency. Upon encountering a roadblock on public lands, we would immediately turn around and quickly leave the area. That's what we did.
We'll never know for sure if we were overreacting, but all of us agree, even in retrospect, that we made the right call.
Maybe some background will help. Something like 2/3 of the state of Nevada is BLM land, which cattle ranchers can use under permits. Some ranchers are not happy about this arrangement, and as a result, there's a small number who are sovereign citizen and far-right militia types who claim to actually own that public land.
Side note, in preparation for doing this video, which is admittedly almost 2 years after the events, that previous weird cowboy roadblock thing we encountered is now billing itself as some sort of adventure campground experience thing. Okay, moving on.
Once we got a mile or two from the roadblock, we stopped to get our bearings.
Our map showed a couple options to get back on route, but not any without significant detours or added time.
Cut straight down and go this way. I'm okay with
So
cutting.
instead, we made a whole new route, one that would get us there in about the same mileage, and we hoped in about the same amount of time.
Man, we didn't think it was going to be as bad as it turned out to be. We took a ridiculously named and ultimately mildly terrifying Nutter Twist Road to BLM 1063 to get over to the ranch.
Nutter Twist's road earned its name. It winds its way through the Grand Wash Cliffs, flanked by steep drop-offs and jutting red bedrock.
Eventually, we reached a spot where we weren't sure we could get through.
And who is coming out? Who is coming out? Meanwhile, you've made me do an uphill start on this crap.
We need to walk this.
Okay.
We stopped to walk it and try and figure out if we could do it, and if so, what line to take. It doesn't look like much in the video, but I'll be honest, if turning around had been an option, I think we would have. With no good options, I lined up the Land Rover to give it my best shot. But it just couldn't get the grip it needed. In desperation, I gave it more gas and let the wheels slip. This, as it turns out, is what the traction control needed to do its job, catching the wheels and sending the power where it needed to be. Finally, I'd figured out how to drive this thing.
The Jeep was the second to make the climb. Four-low, locked center diff, and judicious use of power made it pretty easy work.
Everything else had been fine. This was hard. And I gotta admit, this was the first time I was actually irritated by having a standard transmission. And it,
Oh my god.
I haven't mastered finesse under those circumstances. So after stalling a couple of times, rolling backwards, attempting an uphill start,
I mean, brute forcing it is one way. Holy shit.
I tried to shoot the Forerunner into space.
He just decided to unsubscribe from that hill.
And I made it to the top of the hill, and I didn't die, and I didn't kill Makar.
It worked out, so
We made it!
can't
What
say
an
mud.
awesome day.
But
Oh,
let's get back
wait,
on the...
we still
Yeah.
have over
Yeah.
50 miles to go? Well, shit. Let's get on with it. One of my greatest regrets from this trip is that we really had to rush this part. Everything was so pretty, and with both the scenery and the temperature constantly changing, it felt like every 30 minutes we were on a different planet. And, again, as is the motto for this trip, we'd never seen anything like it.
And then it was starting to get dark.
We turned onto Route 1063, a very rough, primitive road that rapidly descended toward the ranch and the canyon.
With a 1,000-foot drop in about 3 miles, on a rough road, in the dark, driving off a cliff might have been slightly more efficient, and to be honest, we came close on more than one occasion. But in somewhat of an anticlimax, we safely reached Barten Ranch around 10 p.m., only 3 hours after we planned to be there.
I don't know how to sum up this day. Crap. Okay, well, whatever. So this morning, in our covered wagons, we woke to all kinds of nature sounds. Birds, aspen trees, and then the ranch triangle and a goddamn helicopter. I swear, I thought we were under attack.
The staff had prepared us an awesome breakfast. And then I took this as an opportunity to investigate a weird clanging noise the Land Rover had been making pretty much since the beginning of the trip. My initial thought was a loose exhaust mount, but it was worse than that. Apparently one of the bolts holding in the brake caliper had decided to wander off.
My camera won't get a good... But I mean, that is exactly the noise I've been hearing.
With no metric bolts around and the nearest hardware store 100 miles away, we decided to pretend it wasn't a problem.
So we got on the road and headed down to the river overlook at the very edge of the canyon. That was a incredibly rocky drive. It was maybe 10 miles, but it took us an hour and a half. But despite all the rough going, which was a pain, alternating between rocks that were challenging to deal with and washboard that was just bullshit, I gotta admit, that view was awesome.
We made it to the Grand Canyon. Right up to it. We were the only people there. I've never been to the other side, the South Rim, the touristy part, but I literally cannot imagine it. Where we were, we might as well have been on the moon.